Thank you very much. We'll do a little bit of formal introductions. I'll tell you who I am and where I got my start and why I'm here. And then I'll go into the story of Marquardt's New York Chips and where we're heading now. My name is Chad Heeb. I grew up in Warsaw. I'll always be a Warsaw at heart, Tiger. I live over in Castile now. My wife's a teacher in Letchworth. She's an Attica graduate. We have 2 children. My son's 11. My daughter turns 13 on Saturday. They're adorable. They look just like their father. Probably the pride and joy. You know, for those of you who are parents, you know how it is. So growing up in Warsaw, I'm a product of the 80s and 90s. I was born in the early 80s. I grew up through the 90s in Warsaw. I try and explain to my kids that I think we are the last misfit generation, I guess is the way I would put it. Before cell phones, when you could still get away with stuff without everybody knowing your business. And it's kind of funny because my kids will ask me questions. You know, they learn stuff in school. And I remember one of the things last year my daughter was asking me about the greatest generation. And she was asking me, like, what is the greatest generation, Dad? What does that mean? Because they didn't have anything. I'm like, honey, I go, you realize my grandfather could build a house and repair his own car. And she goes, yeah, but you take it to the shop to get fixed. I know. That's why they're the greatest generation. They could grow their food and make their clothes. And it's funny to see that concept totally go above their heads nowadays. So my kids, they're very good kids. They do very well in school because their mother and I will accept nothing else. So as I grew up, from Warsaw, I went to St. John Fisher College. I went there to play football. I'm not going to lie to you. A lot of people, oh, I went there to study. I didn't go there to study anything. I went there to play football. I blew out my elbow my freshman year and realized really soon I could no longer play football. So then I'm like, oh my God, I actually have to take this education thing seriously. So I got my bachelor's degree from St. John Fisher. I had a major in pre-Napoleonic European history with a double minor in secondary education and medieval Asian history. I was a history teacher. I love history. I love dates, facts. It's the way my mind works. I can memorize those things. It's very interesting to me. So I dabbled in teaching for a while. I graduated from college in 2003. At that time, if you applied for a teaching job in New York State, you would be one of about 600 applicants. Now you're lucky if you get 6. So I did that for a little bit, and I realized really quickly that I couldn't stand the politics in the education system. So I went on to work in higher education. I worked in higher education for colleges for 11 years. And one day I was driving. I was driving from Clarence High School back home, and I kept getting text messages from one of my friends. His name's Jason Smith. He was a technology teacher at Letchworth for a long time. Now he owns Greenwood Ecologics. And Jason was texting me funny things. Chad, are you happy with your job? Yeah, why? I've got this friend. He started a potato chip company. I'm like, okay, I like potato chips. He's like, no, I think you'd be perfect to run the company. I'm like, Jason, I have a master's degree in education. I've never ran a business in my life. He goes, yeah, but you sell everything. My hobby for a long time was buying and selling things. I think you inherit that gene. My mother still does it. My mother will be 67 this year. She's been on eBay since 2001. She loves buying and selling everything. I love it too. And he's like, you can buy and sell anything. Business is in your blood. I'm like, I'm glad that you think that. And I'm hoping you're relaying that message to your friend. His friend's Adam Marquardt, by the way. His best friend growing up, which I knew none of the Marquardts at this point in my life. And I go, Jason, why don't you just give me his number and I'll call him instead of you going back and forth relaying messages. He's like, yeah, that'd be great. So I call this person who I don't know. And for those of you who've never met Adam Marquardt, he is the loud, boisterous, enthusiastic one. Whereas Alex and Aaron, his 2 younger brothers, are a little quieter, more reserved. I would say Adam's a little bit more like Tom, for those of you who know Tom Marquardt. So Adam's like, yeah, I'd like you to come in. So I remember I come into his office, I sit down, and I'll never forget this. I walk in like a three-piece suit. I remember growing up, and they'd always talk about like a monkey in a suit for a job interview. I was the monkey in the suit. I walk in, and Adam's looking at me like, he just starts smiling. He's like, I love your outfit. And I'm like, thanks. So he starts talking, and this kind of talk has a little bit of colorful language, we'll put it. And all of a sudden, I realize this isn't a Fortune 500 company we're talking about where I'm sitting in an office all day. This is real work. I go, do you mind if I get rid of the tie and take this jacket off? He's like, not at all. I prefer it. So the tie comes off. I go, all right, what do you need me to do? He goes, I have a brand new company. It's 6 months old. It's potato chips. I need somebody to run the company and make me money. All right, I think I can do that. He told me everything he needed, in fine detail. I'm like, I can do that. So he goes, all right, come back in 2 or 3 days and we'll talk. Okay, come back 2 days later. I remember I give him a number that I want to make. He says yes. I'm like, oh, I didn't ask for enough. And it started. I remember right before that, this second meeting was no more than 3 minutes long. As I'm walking out of the office, I look at him. I said, what do I do now? He said, go make me money. That is the only directions I've ever gotten to run a business in my life. I have people all the time in meetings doing negotiations. Chad, you don't do anything like other people. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I make it up as I go and hope it works. So it's been a really interesting journey. So at that time, New York Chips was 6 months old. So my first day was Halloween 2016. And since then, I have signed every contract. I've trained every person I've hired every person for New York Chips. I've negotiated every contract. Most people that deal with New York Chips knows the Marquardt name because it's on the bag. They've never met a Marquardt. The Marquardts don't do any of the dealings with them. It's all done through me, which I really appreciate because the one thing that the Marquardts are really good at is they do not micromanage. And I love that because I can't stand micromanaging. I'm not that type of manager myself. I would never micromanage anybody. So the interesting thing about New York Chips is where did it come from? All right, so we know it started in 2016, but that's when the company started. The idea is from 1967. In 1967 is when Ed and Tom Marquardt decided that they wanted to branch off from the family farm and start their own farm. They did that because their grandparents had decided they were going to sell the farm. So Ed and Tom just thought, we'll go talk to Grandma and Grandpa. They'll give us the farm. We'll get our start, and we'll be on our way. But in true Marquardt fashion, their grandparents said, you can get in the bidding process just like anybody else. We're not giving you a thing. So Ed and Tom begged, borrowed, and stole every dime they could. They went to the auction, and they bid and won a 50-acre lot and one barn. And that's how they started. Just to fast forward if you want to, and I'll jump around a little bit. Where we're at now is we farm approximately 10,000 acres. So it's grown quite a bit. They started with the normal dairy. It was in 1971 that they decided that there's probably more money in what we'll call cash crops, potatoes, wheat, organic corn to sell to other people. And not so much into trying to raise the dairy. We still have a dairy. They never let the dairy go, but it's not their main source. So they do this for a while, and they're starting to get ahead in life. In 1981, Tom is sitting there, and he has this bill from this carrier to have his potatoes shipped. And he's looking at it, and he's like, why am I paying this guy to take my potatoes 300 miles away when I have a CDL? So we started TJ Marquardt & Sons. That's our trucking company. We now have 65 trucks, 160 trailers. We operate out of 5 states, and we cover the lower 48. So as you'll see, all the businesses build upon each other. In 1985, they started Marquardt Products. Marquardt Products is lime, sawdust, bedding, paper, things like that. And it came about. Someone who was working for Marquardt's was at a farm picking something up, and they said, man, I really wish you guys had some lime. because you come here twice a week, but I really need it, and it takes me so long to get it. So they just made a call. Well, we're picking this up in Pennsylvania, and 30 miles away, there's a lime mill. We'll just pick it up from there and bring it here and then sell it. That's how Marquardt Products started. As the years went on, new things came in. Miller Marquardt Lumber. They didn't want to pay retail for lumber anymore. Marquardt Realty. You'll never see a Marquardt Realty sign anywhere, but we own our own realty company, so when we buy or sell anything, we don't have to pay the 5% brokerage fee. It's in the late 90s when the boys, Tom's boys, start going to college and getting out of college that you start seeing different ideas emerge. And the biggest one that came out of it in the early 2000s was Marquardt Repair. That's where we fix all the heavy equipment. And it started with our own trucks. Now it's municipalities from all over. We do custom. We have a fabrication shop. We employ, most heavy equipment repair shops employ anywhere from 3 to 6 mechanics. Right now we have 22. And we take in work from all over the state. And again, it's a funny story. Adam Marquardt is 2 years out of college. He's talking to his dad. Dad, we got this Peterbilt and the transmission went. Dad's like, all right, order a new one. We got to put it in there. He's like, yeah, but what if we ordered 6? Why would we order 6 if we only need 1? Well, if I order 6, I get them a lot cheaper. I'll sell the other 5 and we'll get a free transmission. If you think you can do it, go ahead. That's how Marquardt Repair started. He did sell the other 5 and got a free transmission. So it's funny how it started building. The idea of a potato chip company comes from Charlie Chips. You guys remember those, the tins? Yeah. Actually, I just bought 2 tins for Tom I think it was last summer. There was an auction in Nunday. They had 2. They were in really good shape. I got them for $17. And Tom always liked that. That's when he thinks of chips, that's what he thinks. He doesn't think of New York chips, guys. He thinks of Charlie Chips. He thinks of the tin. That's what he thinks of when he thinks of potato chips. That's where the idea for New York chips always came from. They always, as soon as he put a potato in the ground to grow it and harvest it, he wanted a potato chip company. And he relayed that to his sons their entire life. So Agripalooza 2014. For those of you who don't know what Agripalooza was, it hasn't been around since COVID, unfortunately. But Agripalooza was a celebration of the ag community in Wyoming County. It would go from different farm every year, and people would come and they would just celebrate the ag community that we live in. So in 2014, Adam's there. At the time, he was there with Amos, if any of you remember Amos. Amos Coney. Yeah, he was there. And I think it was Aaron Marquardt. And they had a fryer. They were just frying some potatoes, making homemade potato chips. And a gentleman walks by. He goes, can I try one of those? Yeah, go ahead. So he grabs them. He says, man, this is really good. I'm like, oh, I appreciate that. You know, he goes on his way. And the following year, they're like, what are you guys going to do for Agripalooza? Can you fry potato chips again? Because everybody loved them. They're like, yeah, we'll even do something different. We'll bring a couple different fryers, and we'll do different oils in each one. So they're setting up. They're getting going. Guy walks by and goes, I bet you don't remember me. And Adam looks at him and goes, yeah, you're the guy last year who said we should do potato chips. And the guy's like, wow, you got quite a memory. He's like, yeah, I remember it. I was flattered that you would say that. And he goes, well, what do you got going on now? He's like, well, these are just different oils that we mess around with. We got avocado oil, we got coconut oil, we got vegetable oil. I said, can I try them? He's like, yeah. He goes, you really should make your own potato chip. He's like, yeah, that'd be great. He goes, can I talk to someone on your behalf? Yeah, whatever. And the guy goes, here's my card. The gentleman's name is Ken Casseri. He just happens to be Danny Wegman's best friend from when they were little kids and still works for Wegman's corporate. So now he's got Adam's attention, right? He's got this card. He's like, ooh, this says Wegman's, and he's got a fancy title. So a couple of weeks go by, Adam gets an email, and it's from Ken. He said, hey, I would like you to bring up a sample to Wegman's corporate to give to the buyer. It's like, okay, I can do that. Not this time, we have nothing. We don't have a fryer other than something you just put on a counter. Don't have a bag. So he takes up large sandwich bags full of homemade potato chips and different oils to Wegmans. And he said he got there, And the buyer didn't seem really impressed, just was kind of almost like he was annoyed. And he's like, yeah, come on back. And as they're sitting down, he gets a phone call. And all of a sudden, his whole demeanor changed. He's like, yep, I'd like to try them. So Adam's giving it. This is what we do. We're a farm. This is just potatoes we mess around with. We grow them ourselves. Yep, that's a great idea. He's like, but just so you know, we do resets in March. We do plans for the resets, meaning stores in general, their resets, when they switch the store around, the main switch is in March usually. Some places like Walmart switches every day, but it's just so you can't find things. Yeah. But they plan for that months ahead of time. So usually to get on what they call the planogram, you have to be on there good 7-8 months before they do the reset. So they're talking like, hey, the reset's going to be a while. We're going to reach out to you in January, set something up. Then the following year, 2017, you'll be able to come in and you'll be fine. Okay, Adam's like, that's great. Thinking to himself, that's awesome. I don't have bags. I don't even have somebody to make potato chips. I have nothing. So January comes, he gets an email from the buyer. Hey, Danny Wegman loved your chips. He wants them this year. We're going to need a tractor trailer load the first week of March. So Adam does everything he can, gets it all together, asks them, hey, which one did he like best? Praying they didn't say avocado oil. They said avocado oil because it's the most expensive one, but it tastes really good. So our first invoice was to Wegmans. They were our very first customer, and it was March 4th, 2016. To this day, they're a great company to work with, tremendous people from the bottom to the top. Only place I've ever been to where everybody seems to be happy. There's some stores I work with, they're the exact opposite. So again, 6 months later, I come in. I remember my first day. I'm literally sitting at a computer. I have no idea what I'm doing. I remember looking at the social media. We had 859 followers. I'm like, social media is the easiest way in modern times to advertise. It's cheap. You're just paying someone to put up ads, really. And I'm like, I got to get this up. So I made myself a goal. I'm a big goal setter. I'm one of those people. Every single day of my life, I have goals set. When I wake up, I want to achieve them. I have long-term goals. I have short-term goals to accomplish long-term goals. I try and relate to my kids. So my first goal for New York Chips was in a year, I wanted to have at least 10,000 followers on social media. A year to the day, I had 10,859. Right now, if you're curious, we have roughly 25,000 Facebook followers, about 2,000 Instagram followers, hundreds on X, used to be Twitter, but I don't do a lot with that. So that was my biggest thing. How do I get people's eyes on this new product when there's always going to be a sleeping giant when it comes to potato chips? We are never going to be Lay's. Lay's is like Q-tips. Most kids don't know Q-tips really are called cotton swabs, that Q-tip is a company. That's how chips are. I mean, we all know they're potato chips. If anybody asks somebody to picture potato chips, they picture Lay's. So my goal has always been to stick out different. What makes Western New York, what makes us different than everybody else? One of the biggest things that makes us different is we love flavor. It's one thing that makes us different. You even go to Albany, their food's bland compared to ours. We like flavor. I always thought it was interesting. When I met my wife, she would tell her grandfather by that time had passed, but her grandmother was still alive, and she was in her 90s, and she would tell me funny stories of her husband. Whenever they went to dinner, he'd always have a salt shaker with him. Even if there was, because he didn't want to run the risk that there was no salt on the table. He goes to somebody else's house, he sits down, he's taking his salt shaker out and using it because he loves salt. I'm like, man, I can't believe he lived as long as he did. And he said, oh, no, he's fine. We love flavor. So it kind of pushed me towards doing something different, and that's the co-branding that we do at New York Chips. I work with other companies to come up with unique Western New York, upstate New York flavors. Dinosaur barbecue, Anchor Bar, buffalo wing, Craig's cheddar cheese. If you guys don't know, Craig's is right over in Linwood, right over in Pavilion. It's the Noble family. The Nobles, the Cristianos, the Wadsworths, they own that farm. Um, Speedy, Speedy Marinade out of Binghamton. For those of us in Western New York, that would be Chevetta's. Speedy's the original. They're huge. We have our newest one that's in stores right now is the salt and vinegar, Flower City malt salt and vinegar. They do a malt vinegar based right out of Rochester. The gentleman who owns that, Chris is 34 years old, great kid. Works in digital field. We have 2 new ones coming out. If you guys follow the social media, Weber's Mustard. Yeah, I'll have that out within 3 weeks. I just got this phone call right before I got here. I was in my car coming down here, and I get the phone call from the buyer. So my biggest distributor is Cavallaro River Valley out of Syracuse. They do only grocery stores. So they do all the Wegmans, Tops, Walmart. They do all huge stores. They don't do small stores at all. And I get a call from the buyer. His name's Tom Minigan, great gentleman. He's like, Chad, you got Lauren really excited. Lauren is the liaison for Cavallaro to Tops. That's what she does all day long. She just lobbies Tops. And I'm like, Tom, I've been in a meeting all morning. I literally am eating something right now, and I'm going to another meeting. I go, I haven't checked my email. I know Lauren emailed me. What's going on? And he goes, oh my God, Tops is going district with the Weber's chip. It's the first time ever with New York chips that they're going district-wide, meaning they're putting it in every store. They're not giving the store a choice. You're going with this potato chip. What does it mean for us? It means finally a corporation is acknowledging that we are different in Western New York. Even though you're based out of Western, you're actually promoting local. It's the first time they've ever done it. So I'm very proud of it. It gets me excited. More for Weber's, to be honest with you. For those of you who know Weber's, to this day, if you walk me into a fridge and I open up and I see a Weber's mustard, I instantly think of my grandparents. To this day. When I was a kid, if I was at my grandparents' house, it was cereal for breakfast. I've never saw my grandfather eat anything but cereal for breakfast in my life. And for lunch, it was always salami sandwiches with Weber's mustard on white bread. And I love Weber. I always love them. The Desmond family owns Weber's now. It goes back to the Weber family. It's just at one point there were no sons, and the daughter took the Desmond name. Great people, phenomenal people, and that's why I really love these relationships I get to do is actually work with them. I have another one coming out very soon. I think it'll be out by Memorial Day, and that is a new sour cream and onion chip done with Bully Hill Vineyards. They actually matched one of their wines to our chips. Yeah, again, great people, amazing story. If you ever want to go down a rabbit hole of local business and just getting through things that nobody should have to go through, look up the Bully Hill story. The gentleman who started Bully Hill was considered the #1, I don't know the technical term, basically he was a winesmith. He developed wine, and he actually started in Victor, New York. And what happened is he built up this company so big that he took on a partner, and then an outside company came in, and they said, yeah, we want to invest. And he was all happy because he was sending his product all over the States, all over Europe. Unfortunately, what he didn't know, because he was an honest person and he didn't read all the fine print, was eventually they got him to sign over 51% of the company. And then they tried to make everything cheap. They stopped using local grapes. They stopped using local people. And he got really upset by that. So he moved. He moved down to Cayuga Lake, and he bought the land that Bully Hill's on. He started planting grapes, found out that they were growing very well there. He starts Bully Hill Vineyards. Then he has his famous wine that he's known for. He brings it out. He gets sued by his old company. He's not allowed to use his name because his name is tied to their business. For the rest of his life, he was never allowed to use his name on his wine. And he still pushed on and became Bully Hill, which is arguably the #1 wine on the Finger Lakes. You know, it depends who you are and who you think, but it's one of the most recognizable. I always thought it was just a fascinating story. They're very, very dedicated to their family through that company. The young lady who runs it now, I believe she's in her 70s. She was his, I think it was his niece. But when he passed, they wanted somebody from the old country. So she came from Italy because she had the family recipe. Just great, I mean, amazing people. And those are the kind of people I get to work with by doing this with New York Chips. As I was going with New York Chips, and again, this is, I give all the credit to the Marquards on this. They give me the motivation to try new things, almost because I think they like watching people push their way through. So I was into the chips maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and I'm sitting at a food show. And this guy comes up to me, he's like, Chad, I really love your chips. I only wish that you had bagged potatoes. I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, I've got 35 million pounds of potatoes in storage right now. I'm like, I can get you bagged potatoes. He's like, you can? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I have no idea what it takes to put a potato in a bag at this point in my life. And he's like, well, I want to come out and see your storage facility. You said it's pretty impressive. I'm like, it's amazing. There's not another one like it on the East Coast. That's true, by the way. And he's like, all right, I'll be out tomorrow. I'm like, okay. So I show him around. I show him, where we wash the potatoes, where our potatoes are in storage, the process we go through. He's like, man, this is really impressive. I want 2 pallets next Tuesday. 2 pallets so that's 80 bags. I'm like, yeah, no problem. I walk across the street, I walk into the office, and I look at Adam Marquardt. I'm like, Adam, we are in the bag potato business. He's like, I don't think we can do that. You can't bag Western New York potatoes. For any of you who've ever tried to dig a hole in Western New York, you know we have a rock or two in the ground. Makes it hard to grow potatoes without having them misshapen because the rocks push on them as they grow. And he's like, we can't do that. I'm like, no. I've got a guy who does this for a living. He's already put an order in. He's seen the potatoes. He's like, really? He's like, all right, how much did you get per bag? I told him, and he goes, I guess we're in the bag potato business. I had no idea what I was doing, none. So the very first few bags that we did, we would wash them and pick them out by hand, and then walk them over to a scale and weigh them. Well, not enough. Grab another potato, put it in there. Okay, we're good. And then we'd zip tie them. So after doing that for the first order, we found an old potato bagger, a foot pedal potato bagger in Gazowski's barn up on 78. So we're sitting like this. You push pedal and fills up, walk it over, weigh it, and then you line them up. And then we'd have to stack them by hand. So that first year, I'll never forget, we did 5,000 and like 600 bags that first year. And the people over in potato storage hated me. Every time I walked over there, you could just, more bags. Yes, but I'm keeping you employed. So I remember after that, so we got done about 2nd or 3rd week of June, and we're at the beginning of July, and Adam comes up to me and he's like, you got a pretty good handle on the bags now, right? I'm like, yeah, I think I know what I'm doing. He goes, if you had a whole year, how many bags do you think you could sell now? I'm like, I think I can sell between 30 and 40,000. He's like, that's great, because I just ordered a brand new bagger and a hopper. It cost me $750,000, and I want you to have it paid off in 3 years. I remember him saying that. Like, there's funny things that I never knew were real until I started doing this for a living. I remember one time I went to the dentist, and the hygienist looks at me, and she's like, how long have you been grinding your teeth? I'm like, oh, I don't. She's like, yes, you do. And she goes, that's a sign of stress. Has anything stressed you out lately? I'm like, yes, all sorts of things. Like paying $750,000 for a bagger in 3 years. So, which I've learned how to manage all that stuff. Like at one point I had an eye twitch. It was really weird. So I remember doing it, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, well, this is pretty good. We can get the bagger. And I'm planning this all in my head, how I'm going to do this, how much growth I need to have year over year in the bagged potato business. And I think the second year I did 48,000 bags. I don't know what I did the couple years after that. Last year I was up to 115,000 bags. I did pay off the bagger. I paid it off in 2 years, not 3 years, which is good because now he wants me to go into another venture with different sized potatoes and a different bagger. Laid that on me last night. I thoroughly enjoy it. I love the competition that goes into it. I really do. I enjoy it. To give you guys an idea of the bagged potatoes versus the potato chips, those are the two companies I run. The bagged potatoes outsell the chips now. Yeah. If you guys go out to dinner in Western New York and you have a fresh potato, you have about a 90% chance it came from us. There's very few restaurant distribution companies that don't use Marquardt potatoes at this point. We've grown this year. My newest thing is we are now going out to Boston once a week, sometimes twice a week. So we're doing the Boston market. We're going to Seabrook, New Hampshire. We're going to Easton, New Jersey. We're in Duncansville, Pennsylvania. We're in Jessup, Maryland with potatoes. It's easier for me to grow the distance with potatoes than it is potato chips, just because of the sheer volume of poundage. Chips don't weigh anything, they cost a lot to ship. Potatoes weigh a lot, they don't cost as much because you take up more room. So it's been really interesting, that part of it for me. There's one other thing I do, which I think I'm crazy to do this for them. The other thing I do for the Marquardts is I manage all of our hunting leases. You want to see angry people? The first year I did it, so we lease over 3,000 acres of our property for hunting whitetails at this point. I deal with all the hunters. The other 7,000 acres are leased for, there's a outfitter based out of Gainesville that hunts waterfowl. They lease the other 7,000 acres. And I've been threatened to be shot. I've had my truck keyed. Oh yeah, it's been bad. All over, like potatoes and chips are easy. You tell somebody who's been hunting a piece of property for 30 years that it's leased to somebody else, it's bad. And I try and explain to them, I go, this isn't me. I don't own this property. I'm an employee. I go, and everybody had equal rights to use that property. The problem is this, and this is where New York State is headed. There was a big company from the Midwest that wanted to lease all the hunting rights from the Marquardts. And they came and they said something to me, and I said, can you give me the opportunity to try and do it locally before you do that? Because if you do that, it'll be corporate, and nobody will ever step foot on it. Nobody locally will ever hunt that property again. And he said, yeah, if you really think you can do it. I'm like, I can do it. I didn't know it was going to be as much of a pain as it is, but that's why it came to be. If you go to a state like Ohio, there's no such thing as posted signs in that state. It's all leased. You have to know where you are at all times legally. That's how New York's going. New York's going to be leased 100% in the next 10 years. It's just the way it is. My father-in-law always tells me stories about when he was a young teacher. He's a retired teacher from Alden. He would come home, and he would grab his gun during gun season, and he'd walk. Just walk. You know, see a neighbor, you'd wave. It's not like that anymore. It's unfortunate, but that's the other thing I do for them. So I have a pretty good understanding of where the properties are and things like that. Probably the newest thing as far as a Marquardt thing that people have heard, I get asked all the time about, was the purchase of Sunny Knoll Farms, the Butler farm. So there's some things about that people don't truly understand. We bought the dairy, we bought all the cows, we bought the houses, we bought the barns, we bought all the equipment. We did not buy all the land. That's not how they sell anymore. Most farms, when they sell you a very little bit of the land, and then over the next 10 years, you have the option to buy the rest of the land. It's a retirement is the way they do it. They see it. Again, it's tough for me. Again, I grew up in Warsaw. I grew up on Christ Road. We had a couple of horses, and we raised chocolate labs when I was a kid. I didn't grow up on a farm, per se. I mean, people now would call that a small farm because we had a barn and a couple animals. I remember small farms. Right next door to me, I remember my neighbors had a retirement farm, Stuart and Florence Nevinger, if any of you knew them. They were my neighbors growing up. And I remember being a kid and my parents trying to explain to me, this is their retirement farm. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, you retired and you bought another farm with animals? Like, you know, because they worked hard. It's different. I don't know, again, in 10 years, I don't know how many small farms there will be. Right now in Wyoming County, you have, you know, between the Osborns, the Boers, the Marquardts, CSS, you know, you have huge farms. I mean, for those of you who don't know what CSS really is, CSS is a multi-billion-dollar company. they're the ones who supply Lay's with all their potatoes. That's awesome. Oh, I love dogs. But it's just the world is changing. I remember, I'll leave you with this, and then I'll bring it up for a question. I remember being a kid, and I think it was 1992. There was a remake made of the movie Cape Fear. And I remember watching it and telling my parents, that's a pretty good movie. I remember my mom saying the original was better. And I thought to myself, wow, you must be old. Then I remember like probably 10, 15 years ago, I was watching the movie Red Dawn, the new one with my kids. And my kids were like, this is a pretty good movie. And I'm like, yeah, the original was better. I'm like, ooh, there it is. Yeah, the original's always better. If you guys don't know it, they're actually making another remake to Cape Fear. The only thing I hope is this. For those of you who know the first two variations of it, in the remake, Gregory Peck and, I can picture him, I'm trying to think of his name. Gregory Peck and the other gentleman who starred in the original were both in the remake. Small parts. One was the judge. God, it's going to hit me like 3 hours from now because I can picture him. I'm a movie buff, but I hope they do that with De Niro and Nick Nolte. I hope they put them in small roles in the remake just so it kind of goes with the old. I don't know if they will. That's just me being sentimental, I guess. So hopefully it was a little bit entertaining for you guys. I do enjoy doing these things. If you can't tell, I can talk all day if you let me. In my former life, when I worked for colleges, I did over 10,000 public speeches. The schools still ask me to come in all the time. Actually, next Thursday, I got to go to Byron Burgeon and talk to their seniors. So I still do talking a lot. Most of the times now when I talk to young people, it really is about it's more motivation than anything. I'd love to see them have goals, have availability, take some personal ownership of things. Again, it makes me think I'm Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino. Like all these kids are, do something with your life. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yeah.
When you said that you're selling to restaurants for 500, for the baked potato, you have russets or?
No. So the hardest thing to do was to get people to try something other than a russet. Because that's what we all grew up on. That's what an Idaho potato is. So what we have, we call them 138s and 139s. That's their technical number that goes along with them. They're both Cornell potatoes. They're actually a Juanita and a Lamoka. If you guys have ever been to Lake Juanita or Lake Lamoka, they're Finger Lakes, smaller ones. But what makes them special is this is the only part of the world that you can grow those potatoes to the big enough size to make them work. But those potatoes are special because you can fry them, because we use them for chipping, but you can bake them, boil them, roast them, and they'll hold up. They are, and again, the reason why we can use them here is because our growing season in Western New York is different than anywhere else in the world. Most people do not realize this, but our average difference in temperature between day and night in summer is 13 degrees. That makes our potatoes grow bigger. Yeah. It's funny because farmers for years would tell people like, oh yeah, we have all these different practices. Like, nothing you did different. It's the environment thing. So that's what makes it possible for us. It's those two potatoes we use, and because they grow big enough to compete with a russet. What makes them different, if you fry a Juanita, it'll fry crystal white, just like snow. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. It doesn't have that dingy, yellowish, dark color to it. It's white. And again, I'm 100% biased. Don't ever take my word for any of this stuff because I'll tell you that New York chips and our potatoes are the greatest thing ever. But they have a phenomenal flavor to them.
Cornell developed this
Yep.
with seed?
Yeah. So same gentleman in Cornell did both of them. He named the Juanita after his wife's favorite lake was Lake Juanita. That's where it came from. And then he did Lamoka second, and it was the neighboring lake. So he's like, well, I've got Juanita. I might as well use Lamoka. But yeah, they're just different. They really are. I mean, it's to the point I'm around potatoes too much, but if I go to a restaurant, I can tell you when they bring it out if it's my potato or not. Cooked. Just I could do it. If you blindfold me, I could do it by taste because I can taste the difference between a russet and our potato.
So given that, what kind of variety?
In a perfect world, this is what this is what Adam wants me to do, and this is what's going to give me some sleepless nights coming up. He wants me to try and tackle the grocery or retail world with our potatoes. So what that is, now we'd be doing 3, 5s, 10s, and 20-pound bags that you'd see in poly bags that would be in tops or whatever. Save a lot. What makes that difficult is when I get, if I have a load get rejected, a pallet of potatoes to a restaurant distribution company, if they open up like they don't like the way they look, whatever, I get a pallet rejected. If you get grocery or retail rejected, it's the entire load and it's already in poly. So it's a lot more hostile. And that you can get rejected for a number of reasons. It might be because your product's inferior. Usually it's because somebody came in and they gave them a quarter less a bag. And they won't tell you, they'll just reject your load. So there's a lot of validity or volatility in it, but that's probably the next big thing for me personally. As far as Marquardts go, getting Butler Farm up to where they want it to be is going to be the next long distance stuff. There's a lot of things there as far as technology wise and stuff that they didn't have that we want and things like that. Just bringing it up to 2024. Yeah.
Chad, question, speaking of dairy farming, when they bought Sunny Knoll Farm, does Marquardts have several dairy farms in Wyoming County, or are they focusing on one big dairy
So
farm?
we had one. We had one on Hardy's Road. Hardy's in school. It's almost on the corner. Technically, it's Hardy's. That one was about 500 head, and that's what we've had for a long time. Sunny Knoll, I believe they were at 1,800 with our goal to get them up by the end of the year to 24. Yeah. I don't think I don't think they want to compete with the Boers of the world or the Osborns. I really don't. I think it was a way for them to branch out with something else in mind. Like Adam has something in mind for the dairy. What it is 100%, I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't ask Adam a lot of questions about that stuff because if I do, he'll rope me in somehow.
Now, was the Kozlowski Farms, which are on 78,
Yep.
who bought them out? Or did they just,
They still own all their stuff.
oh, they do?
Yeah, JoJo still has the rights to it. They lease their property to us and the McCormicks, who through the McCormicks it's leased to CSS. Always been great to us, always, and to the McCormicks. I do some stuff with Paul McCormick now, who's Jim's son. Paul, he's got the rights to all the land. I do some stuff as far as leasing his hunting property for him. So it's a weird world. All the days, the Hatfields and McCoys of the world, that stuff's gone. This generation that's running, and agriculture is no different than any other business. Though this generation is doing whatever they can to maximize profits. So, like I said, the Gzowskis, actually JoJo was texting me earlier today. She needs me to send a case of chips to one of her friends. So we have a great relationship with all of them.
Do the majority of potatoes come from western New York?
Oh yeah, yeah. We grow our own. We grew 2,250 acres this year, which came in at about 68 million pounds. We contract out. So Gail Hazen over in Geneseo, Gail contracts his potatoes to us. We have Johnson's down in Steuben County that contract us. So when I say that, they grow for us. They're guaranteed to get the money they grow. We give them a contract. We're going to pay you this. Then it's up to us to sell them for them. Our ultimate goal has always been the same with the chips, the bagged potatoes. If we could, we would keep every potato in the state of New York. In a New York-based company. That's shipped to Boston all we want. We can't even grow enough potatoes in New York to feed the people in New York, what they use. But that's always been the goal. We try and do a lot. We've worked with Mighty Acres. We've worked with, and her name's going to escape me right now. She's got the organic farm up on 78 in Strikersville. Um, Everybody from the city comes out and goes to her little, it's been there for years. It's funny, I remember when I went there to meet with her for the first time, and I went in there and I'm like, oh my God, I've been driving by this since I was a little kid. Never stopped there because organic doesn't mean as much to me as it does some people, but we've worked with, if you grow potatoes, we've worked with you. You know, even to the point where there's sometimes I'll see the Phelps farm out of Chaffee. I'll see them over at Save a Lot in Yorkshire, and I'll talk to him. Great guy. I just to talk to him about potatoes, which again is really weird to me because if you guys talked to me 9 years ago about potatoes, all I would tell you is you eat them. I didn't know much else. Right. Any other questions?
What's your biggest challenge when you get this?
100%. My biggest challenge right now is getting people who want to work. It's so sad. Yeah. You know, when I was a kid, people talked about abilities. You know, what you could do, what you could offer. And it's such a joke now. The biggest ability in the world is availability. Just show up. You'll do something. That's the mindset now. I recently hired a couple of people a week apart, hoping one of them would work out. One of them lasted 2 weeks. The other one lasted 3 weeks. They both quit. And my sales team, it's not a hard job. It's just you have to be willing to drive. And I tell people in the interviews all the time, you have to like yourself because you're with you all day. Nobody else. It's you. And it's one of those things my stepfather always taught me. He's the man who raised me. He always said, you better like yourself because no matter where you go, there you are. And that's what I found. A lot of people can't handle being just by themselves all day long. But it's fascinating. No multitasking, no problem-solving abilities. Please, every question I have, give me the answer instead of trying to just work through it. And then, the money is never enough. And it's just different than what I was raised in. I remember my first job. I was 12 years old. Like I said, we had horses. At the time, my brother was 14. And my parents, I'll say they rented us out to a local farmer who did hay. Because if we worked with him during the summer, he'd pay us $10 a day, 8-hour days, and he'd get us lunch, but he would keep their bale of hay at $1 a piece. And that was my first job. And I don't think most people in 2024 could handle that. So that it's 100%. I've been trying to hire someone for 3 months. And it's amazing. If I went through and told you in the last 7.5 years the different people I've had 3 total people last over a year. And at first I did think it was generational. I hired a couple young people. I'm like, oh, these young people. I can remember I had 2 gentlemen in their 50s, their mid-50s, and they didn't last. I think it's societal. I really do. I think society has brainwashed a lot of people.
Young kids can't get a job nowadays because of the laws. There's so many laws and stuff. If they start a job working,
I know.
having money.
Learn what it takes. Yeah, I agree. I agree with you 100%. And my wife and I are a little bit different on that because when I was growing up, to play sports, I was required to have a job. My parents would not let me do extracurricular activities in school if I didn't have a job. My wife, who was raised by 2 teachers, school was her job. She was not allowed to have a job while she was in school. She had to maintain her grades and play sports. She has a phenomenal work ethic, and so do I, but she also had to wake up on weekends every weekend, and her and her sister had to do wood with their father. They were outside for 10 or 12 hours a day. If I ask my kids to unload the dishwasher, I get, oh, Dad, so hard. Like, so it's tough. It really is. The laws are different. Society's different. People are different. I try and tell young people this all the time. Regardless of your education, if you have motivation, you can make as much money as you want in 2024. Making money is really easy. Most people would rather complain and not do anything. I don't know how else to put it. Plus, it's so expensive. I don't know how people don't want to make more money. But again, that's the hardest thing. Just finding someone to show up for work. Like I said, yeah. No, we've dabbled in it a little bit here and there. Yeah, it's really not. For what it costs and what you get for it, the reward isn't there. Um, Plus, when you have an issue with organic, you can lose everything really quick, and there's no recovery from it. I mean, you get a little blight or something in non-organic, you can treat it. Can't treat organic, so it just runs through it like rampant, and what you got to do is burn it off or cut it off before it spreads. So we don't do a ton with it. I get a kick out of some of the times. I mean, I'll be honest, I've had the opportunity to do a lot with organic potatoes. I don't know how anybody makes any money at it unless you're just selling them one by one to somebody who thinks it's different. I can sell all the organics you want. There's no extra money in it. At the core, most people just think it's a potato. That's the way I look at it. But yeah, it's will it change someday? We will always go with whatever's going to make us money. Again, at the end of the day, the Marquarts are very, very good business people, and that goes from Ed and Tom all the way down. I always tell people, does anybody in here know Ed Marquart? Ed is one of my favorite people I've ever met in my life. He's got the most unique way of telling a story. He tells you the ending, and then he goes back and gets you to the ending. And he sometimes has some colorful language when he's telling a story. And I remember the last one. He's like, this SOB. And I'm like, all right, now I want to know why he's an SOB. 20 minutes later, I had the story. But he started with the guy's name and that. And then he went and told you why he was that. So anybody in here remember Mr. Ferrando from Warsaw? He was a social studies teacher for years. Mr. Ferrando, from the 70s through the 90s. His name was Big Joe Ferrando. He's still alive. He lives in Leroy. But I always thought it was funny because him and Eddie actually used to be bouncers together in the 60s. Which is funny because Eddie's like this tall. And I guess he was the tough one. But yeah, I get a kick out of both of them. Eddie should be back. I think he's going to be back next week. He's down in Florida. He snowbirds now. I think Judy makes him. Otherwise, he'd be driving around the back roads of Wyoming County all day long. Most amazing thing I've ever heard. The first year I was with Marquarts, I would joke because no matter where I went, I would see Eddie. Didn't matter what direction I was going. Sometimes I didn't even know how it was possible because I'd cross him like, how did he get there? So I said something to Alex Marquardt, his nephew, the middle of Tom's boys. I'm like, how many miles a year does Eddie put on his truck? And I go, and he snowbirds, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, well, this year he put on 97,000 miles. And he snowbirds. Yeah, it's just, you will always, when Eddie's back, you're going to see him driving around the back roads, checking on the fields. And if anybody's there, he's going to pull in and ask, hi, what you doing? Not a care in the world. Any other questions? I hope it was a little entertaining, everybody. My pleasure. Of course, I brought chips. You guys take as many as you want. There's 60 of them there. I never know what kind to bring, so I just bring the plain wavy sea salt. Sorry if you wanted like dinosaur or salt and vinegar or something. I always feel bad. Like if I bring a flavored one, everybody's, I don't like the flavor. The other thing, I'll give you guys one more bit of news, and this is sad news, and I wish I didn't have to share this with the world. I haven't really put it out in the public yet. We are no longer making the avocado oil chips. And it's because exactly what we were talking about. The co-packer cannot get enough help to clean the fryers after we use the avocado oil, so they'll no longer do it. Yeah. It's vegetable oil. It's traditional. Whenever they say vegetable, it could be sesame. It could be sunflower. Yeah, I got that news. It's been actually about 6 weeks. I don't want to tell people because I feel bad. I mean, it was my favorite one. But it's just one of those unfortunate, they cannot find anybody to hire. And they went from, they would do our order. They would, what they should have it is they should have it cleaned in 2 hours and ready to go with the corn oil the next day. That's what they would do. Because they can't find people, it's taken them 24 hours to get it cleaned. Yeah. That's not, the chips are made in Mansfield, Ohio. We've bounced back and forth. We've been in Ohio, then we were in New York, now we're back to Ohio. Just depending on what's going on where. But yeah, it's all over. Nobody wants it. No, it's not. It really isn't. Yeah, and it's another thing that we see all the time. The non-fun jobs are, the ones that are available. But I saw something. My wife sent me this morning. My wife's an Attica graduate, and then she did her master's and undergrad at Fredonia. Last night, Fredonia announced that they're letting go of 13 majors. Yeah, 4 of them are education-based. And I was just talking, I had a BEC board meeting before I came here, and I was talking to the superintendents about it. I go, yeah, kids don't want to go to school to be a teacher anymore. You have to work for 47 years now. Yeah, oh, it is. Well, and again, how do you justify the pay? I don't know how. I've told my wife for years. I told her when I first met her, I said, if I were you, I would quit your job as a teacher. You don't get paid enough. I love the kids. I understand that. There's no justification for it. And that's what young kids think first. No matter what they're interested in, young people will think money first. Because they think they should get paid what we get paid as professionals. They have no idea what it means to start at the bottom and work their way up. So you won't get that. You won't get somebody saying yes to education when they're going to start off at $40,000 a year. When again, you can go to Walmart in college, and by the time you're 22, you're making $60,000 or $70,000 a year. So yeah, it's tough. Like I said, I'm a Fisher graduate, and I was an education person, and eventually you're going to see all these majors go away, and I don't know what they're going to do in the education part. But
I want to say one thing.
yeah,
A big thank you to Chad for helping our nephew who's battling colon cancer. Good friend of Chad's has been taking him to chemo treatments in Batavia, and we really appreciate you being such a good friend to David.
well, thank you very much. It's my pleasure. Edie's referencing Jamie Cummins. Jamie is a good friend of mine. I've known Jamie since I was a teenager. He's 10 years older than me, and it's funny because all of his friends, I remember this growing up, a lot of his friends ended up being my coaches on JV sports when I was coming through Warsaw. They're all 10 years older than I am. And all of them used to tell me I was born in the wrong decade. Because we'd get to school, and all the kids I played sports with wanted to listen to the newest song that came out in 1996, and I'd be listening to rap or Motley Crue, and they're like, man, you listen to good music. So it's fun. I've been really good friends with Jamie for a long time. The story behind that is he hired me at McDonald's when I was 16, and at 36, I hired him to be my director of sales for New York Chips. Yeah, great friend of mine, great friend of mine.
Well appreciated.
Well, thank you. All right. What's next, guys? What do you guys get to do next?
Eat chips.
Eat chips.